For those who don't know me, I'm Verna Kaunisto. I'm in Finland right now, and I'm for the moment the executive director of Systema Finland and member of the board since 2017. The child protection seems to be an obvious thing for programs and organizations working with children. Yet I was speaking with different program managers, and it seems to be open how to ensure the protection of children. So we are here now to discuss about why should any program have a clear and transparent child protection program. We're also speaking about the risk zones in working with children and about eventual blind spots in safeguarding. So today we have with us in the panel Mr. Sasa Stefanovic, the Director of Network of Organizations for Children of Serbia, MODS, and Alice Hagger-Vaughan, Eurochild's Child Participation Officer. So can we start with you two both introducing yourself and your role in child protection? So let's start with Sasha, okay?
Thank you, Verna, and for this opportunity to meet you and talk from my perspective, from our experience. As Verna said, my name is Sasa Stefanovic, and I'm director of this network of Organization for Children of Serbia. There are 100 members at the moment. We are national, not like Systema global, but I think that that we share the same problem. Nevertheless, it's local, national, global when it comes to the issue of child safeguarding. And when I talk to Verna, I mentioned some examples, but at the beginning, I think we should ask all the time. I mean, especially today, and to keep this in mind: is your organization safe for children? I mean, we usually think, and we start really from this positive, affirmative position, and it is good. Like we are committed to child rights, and we want to support them. Systema, for example, you have a great idea and great methods, and and really work with most vulnerable children. But there are many risks, and we, I know, very often don't see, or we don't want to see. And I had one workshop with colleagues that work directly with children. They have social services, daily care, and they said, like, oh, there is no risk. We know all each other. We are all friends, and like there is no risk from our side. But fortunately, we usually in public talk about this issue of child safeguarding when something happened, or when we find out that something happened. So just recently in our country, we discovered two very problematic, like it was like a scandal, and you see that actually there is always risk. Any like parents trust to this person, they were friends, whatever. There is one very good educational institution in Serbia, very famous for many years. And but just recently, a few girls reported publicly what happened. I mean, you realize that something happened for years, and public get know just like few months ago. And then when you what we could found that in the organization, some kids, some children, some girls reported abuse, reported something goes wrong, but the director was friend with this guy, like he knows him from childhood. He couldn't believe, I cannot explain this. No, nobody can explain this. And now what's happened? This organization like works for like 3 decades, and now they're afraid that they will be, I don't know, closed down. So it seems that they try to somehow hide what happened, like to solve this at home, like not to involve public. But in the end, everybody will find out somehow. So this safeguarding is at first is to keep children safe, protect them, do whatever you can for prevention. But if you don't do this and people find out, it can really destroy your reputation in a way that endanger the existence of your organization, and nobody wants this. And this, I think that this is very important, this kind of events and discussion, and to be, if we can, like proactive and talk about risk. First risk is if child is in contact with adults. I mean, we all know for this, for work with children, we need to establish mutual trust. But this is also a risk, because then we as adults, we have this position of power, and it can happen, it might happen that someone abuse this trust. And in many cases, unfortunately, abusers are not someone from the street, someone unknown, but the person that approach, that have opportunity to work closely and continuously with children. So this is for the beginning from my side. And I'd like to share. When I was thinking what to say, just to share some our experience and what's going on in our country, and really try to be, as I said, as much as we could, proactive, not to wait. I mean, not to wait that something happened and find out and then like we react. And what is interesting, suddenly everybody talks. Yes, we knew. It was like something suspicious in his behavior. Come on, people, why are you telling now? You know, everyone has to react much more before. And one thing also, there was one school for young actors, so youth children that want to be actors, and in Belgrade, very famous, let's say, teacher has this school, and from this school we have like very famous today actors. But look, this guy didn't want to have any contacts and meetings with parents. This is really alarm. And in the end, we found out that he sexually abused some girls. So parents didn't react. Like, it's normal not to have contact and meet this guy. I mean, so just to think, just to be open, and not to be like paranoid, how to say, but to be aware of risk. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. You know, I was putting down the risks that you mentioned in your speech until now. So what I found out, friendship within the program is a risk. How do you say collegialship? The fact that you are colleagues. What is the word? The trust, relation of trust is a risk. The power relation, the power of teacher according to the student is a risk. And ambivalency of being loyal. Did I understand right?
Yes, I mean, not to be understood wrong. I mean, we work with children and we need all these things, establish trust. We need to be friends with colleagues. I mean, we are committed to this work, but I don't know, but it might happen, you know, just to be aware of this.
Yes, it's important to be aware, as you said. So, Alice, your turn.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alice Hagger-Vaughan. I'm the Child Participation Officer at Eurochild. It's very nice to be here this morning. So Eurochild, I don't know if any of you are aware, but we're a child rights network of organizations and individuals across Europe. So we have the national network, the European network, and yourselves, the global network. And we advocate for children's rights, and especially trying to improve the lives of particularly vulnerable children around Europe. So I will try and complement some of the things, that important points that Sasha just raised. I have got a couple of slides which maybe we could throw up just to kind of aid.
You want me to share, Alice?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thanks, Elisabetta. Okay. So yeah, as I said, we're a child rights network. We have about almost 200 members around Europe. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child is the foundation of everything that we do. And we achieve what we're trying to do through influencing policy, exchange between members, research, and building civil society capacity. But a really central part of Eurochild's work and our ethos is that we're very committed to the child's right to participate in decisions that affect them. And therefore, we try to include children directly in many aspects of our work, including governance more recently, events, advocacy work that we're doing, working on supporting policy in the European Commission, all sorts of different areas where we try to involve children. And we do that with certain principles. So we believe that child protection and child participation go hand in hand. If you're going to work directly with children, the child protection, as Sasha says, it needs to be in place. And we use 9 principles of child protection, child participation, which is to make sure that it's transparent and informative, that it's always voluntary, that the participation is respectful, that it's relevant to them, relevant to their interests, their priorities, child-friendly, so that can be the information they receive or the spaces in which they're participating, inclusive, so trying to make sure children from all backgrounds are able to be supported to participate, that there's training that goes for children and adults that are potentially going to come into contact with children, and that it's safe and accountable. So those are kind of guiding principles that we use. And we really believe that child protection is so essential because in our role, we have a duty of care to the young people that we're working with. And we view that as being non-negotiable. The well-being of the child is always the most central part of what we're doing. And if we fail to do that, we're putting, as Sasha mentioned, first of all, the children at risk potentially of harm. We're also putting the staff members, those working in our membership, in our secretariat, at risk, and also the reputation of the organization is at risk. So those are some of the reasons why we make sure that we have safeguarding in place. And we also really try to create an environment where children feel that they have the space where they can share their views, they feel comfortable, and that they're able to express themselves in a way that works for them. So maybe we could pop onto the next slide. Yeah, so just a little bit of background. There's some photos of pre-pandemic when we were all able to meet in person. So the group you can see sat around the paper, that's our Eurochild Children's Council. So we work with a group of 12 young people, all supported by a different member, and they're all from a different country around Europe. And they work with us very closely on our work in the Secretariat, on advocacy work, and they are with us for 2 years. They go through a selection process, and so they're very heavily involved in what we do. We also have national Eurochild forums. So these are bodies of children in national contexts who gather the views of young people in that country, and then the aim is to bring them up to the European level so that their views are being represented. We also have a child participation reference group. So this is a group of our members who are specifically either working directly with children on a daily basis or have some expertise in child participation. And they work with us to make sure that things like our participation practices are sound, that our safeguarding is sound, and they're involved with us on many aspects. And then we also work with other groups of children on project or activity basis. So we're coming into contact with different groups of children all the time, which calls for different levels of safeguarding, different procedures. But those are kind of the main groups that we work with. So maybe if we can go on to the next. Yeah. So I think Sasha kind of mentioned this, but it's important to be aware that harm to children can be caused by organizations, by networks like ours in different ways. So as Sasha said, harm can be caused by the people, and that doesn't just mean the staff, it can also be volunteers, it can be those associated in some way with the work that you're doing, it could be partners, it could be those, if for example children are coming to one place and they have somebody, an adult accompanying them, they could be causing harm, consultants, etc. So I think it's the same thing. It's not to cause kind of fear, but it's just very important to be aware that in spaces where children are, there is a high risk, unfortunately, of people abusing their position in order to cause harm to children. And so it's very important to be aware of that from the outset in order to recognize the potential risks that children could be facing. But programs can also be a way where children are harmed. That could be because of the design of the program, or the delivery of the program is designed in a way that doesn't make children feel safe, or that puts them at unnecessary risk of harm. And the other thing is operations, and especially now, I think during the pandemic where everything is online, children can often be put in harm's way through things like recording media, social media, sharing their stories, putting them on camera. And so it's also important to be aware that those are possible areas where safeguarding risks could come up. So yeah, I think we can go on to the next. Yeah, and so what do we do about these risks to mitigate them? So we have this protection cycle, let's say, and within it, at the center, we have management and overview and decision making. So making sure we have a clear overview of possible safeguarding risks, procedures, everything to do with child protection. We have somebody who has a strong overview of what's going on, and so they can be aware of everything that's happening. And outside of that, that can include mapping, in our case, the local contacts, the services and support. So understanding who it is that you're working with, the environment that they're in. Risk assessing all activities. So on our side, we do a risk assessment for any activities that are going to involve children, putting forward how it is that they are might be at risk, the possibility level of that, and also what it is that we're doing to mitigate those risks. And then we share that with everybody so that it's very clear to everyone what is a potential risk area and what is being done to mitigate it. And it means that after the event, for example, or the activity, we can come back to that risk assessment and we can see, okay, did those things work? Did they not work? What went wrong? And we can have an open conversation about whether all risk areas were recognized in advance, or whether we also need to see other blind spots. There were other blind spots to know for next time. So then we have, sorry, I've got my computer. Oh, I think, okay. So then it's, about having, designing measures, and so that we have procedures and also a system of complaints. And so that there is also a way for young people to report, or adults to report, cases of abuse, cases of harm. And then the other aspect is to monitor their safeguarding measures and to constantly review them. And so in practice, we were talking with Verna, like, it's so vast, safeguarding, and it can feel a little bit overwhelming. But I think, as Sasha said, like, it's important to just make a clear start, and to, you know, as long as the children are the priority, it's okay to, there are always going to be blind spots that may not have been recognized, but it's also so important to be transparent and honest about them so that you can keep improving. And so in practice, how do we kind of put this cycle into practice? We have our child protection policy, which lists all sorts of things in terms of definitions of abuse, processes and procedures that we have, systems for monitoring and evaluation. All staff have the child protection training when they start with Eurochild in the Secretariat. All of our members are expected to uphold our protection policy and or have their own protection policy that is in line with our own. As I said, we have the risk assessments, we have procedures, clear procedures that are outlined for what to do in cases of an incident. Children always have preparation sessions, so if they're involved in an event, we will do a preparation session in which we explain to them all the different things that are going to be coming up. We give them space so they can ask questions. We talk about any sensitive subject matter that might come up. We have consent forms, very important, media consent. We have designated child protection people. So those are the people in the events, for example, who are there available to focus on child protection and safeguarding, and who anyone can come to if there's an issue. And we also have a code of conduct, which is kind of the top 10 things to make sure that events are safe and comfortable for young people and for the adults as well. We also have a safeguarding pack. So this is like a pack of kind of house rules, the code of conduct, procedures, who to get in contact with if there's an issue, and also some guidelines for speakers for how to speak in events where there might be children present. So we send that out before events. And then we have something called a quiet room. So this is basically a separate area where children can go to during an event to have their own space to kind of get away from everything for a little bit. So we always have that available to them. And then, as I said, we have the review of the risk assessment. We write a report after any events. And we closely work with the supporting adults. So as I said, like, the children that we work with are always supported by one of our members. And so it's very important that we also work with the adults supporting them from that organization, because they have a strong trust relationship, in order to make sure that all the child's needs are being met and that they're safe. So those are just some of the things that we do. Have a couple more slides, but I think, I don't know, maybe Verna.
No, we won't have the time, but I suppose it's possible for any program to be in contact with you for further questions.
Indeed.
I also suppose it's more clear for participants why it's important for any program to have a child protection program. But if you have questions, you can also send it directly to the chat, and we'll be happy to pass them to you. Do you have, Sasha, some things in your mind after Alice's?
Yes, thank you, Alice. You summarize and concise very well. And I had the opportunity to talk to people, discuss, have these different workshops, and we talk about problems, risk, whatever. But then, in the end, we ask what we can do, how we can prevent, so what can be done. So in this way, we like obviously we need to put something on paper, like we need some procedures. But as you can see, this is like child safeguarding policies, whatever, is just, if we think this is just a paper, then we didn't do anything. This is like, I can say it's like our commitment. We put something in paper, what are going we to do to put in practice. So if we say we will work on prevention, whatever, then you really, what is out of this paper, So you need to have program for training for your staff, for volunteers, how to react, who is this person, focal point that is in charge for these things. So, and this is really, when you start this process, it's a holistic approach, and really affect all aspects of your organization. So it's really affect all aspects and dimensions of your work, because how you work with children, with parents, with media, with colleagues, with experts, with consultants. You have suddenly you think that you need all these things in place, and and I was surprised that many organizations, like I work and contacted one organization from Germany, and they work like for years with children, and they have like branches in some Eastern European countries. They don't have like these procedures that we don't need this, or never talk or never think about this. And usually most of organizations, like NGOs, like we are small organization, we are activists, practitioners. We don't need this, like we like children, or it's new administrative work. We are activists. We don't want to just produce new paper or to be bureaucrat, whatever. But in the end, it's not just administrative work. You see that it's very important, but from my side, I don't know.
So I have got one question to you, and as well to Alice. This is something I imagine would interest most of the programs. Is there a typical abuser, first of all, or is there a typical victim?
I have, yes, it's a very interesting
question.
First,
Sasha, and then
yes,
Alice.
Yes, shortly. I have this workshop, and I ask people to make profile of children that live in institutions without parents, that every day going to daily care, and that are like going to elite educational institution, whatever. So in this elite education institution, like children are very smart, independent, but also we found out that this type of children were in risk and a victim of abuse. So unfortunately, any child can be is in risk and can be sometimes a victim of abuse. And yes, you cannot recognize, I think, but the abuser. So you can just try to make a system and procedures to reduce any risk. I know, Alice, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I think it's just important to recognize that anyone can be an abuser, but it's also important to say that we're talking about abuse, but also harm to children can also come in other forms. And so in an unintentional way, but it can still cause significant harm to the child. And I think that's important to remember. So if, for example, we take the case of a Sistema, where you're music practitioner. So I think Verna was saying, you know, for example, in a class, you might be giving adjustments to the young person on their instruments. In some situations, that could make the child feel uncomfortable. We don't know the background of the child, but it's important for the safety of the child, for the safety of the adult giving those instructions, that it's clearly explained to the child what's going to happen, why the adjustments are being given, for example. And,
I mean, the physical adjustments,
exactly,
like the positions and yes. Yes.
So small things like that, which are part and parcel, we can say, of music teaching, but it's important to make sure that the child feels that they're able to say when they don't feel comfortable or what's okay with them, and to make sure that those kind of parameters are set clearly from the start, because that keeps everybody safe in the process. So I think those are instances where it's completely, you know, it's part of the work you're doing, but it's important to kind of make sure that the young people feel comfortable with what you're doing. So we do have, unfortunately, cases of abuse, but it's also to be aware that there are situations where you could unintentionally cause harm to the child. So I think that's important. And as Sasha said, all children are at risk of harm and abuse, unfortunately. It is particularly unfortunate that vulnerable children, for example, children in care, children with disabilities, can be even more at risk of abuse. Yeah.
We have a question from Gilbert in the chat. I don't know if you can see. It says, the tools you present us is very complete. Is it possible to obtain the content of each item, not to begin from nothing, which is the most efficient if we have to choose because of the amount of things to manage?
And I was also asking, can you say something, where to start with, where to begin with? Okay, we realize that our program definitely needs something, and what you present is very complex. And we also realize that it's a whole world of things that we never thought about. And even while thinking and making a list, we will still miss. We will have these blind spots, most definitely, because we are always sort of running after the events because we didn't understand that something like this could happen, or, you know, it's all these, there are parents, there are colleagues that never knew, you know, this might happen. And in the same time, as you said, Sasha, there might be a friend that seems to have been abusing, and so there are so many questions. And now we are just in the beginning. In many programs, this is just a start. So what do you suggest, both? What to begin with?
Sasha, do you want to go?
Yes, Alice make very well and concise structure for this. We usually and Alice will also, I suppose, say, and there is a lot of materials, and keeping safe children as an organization with a lot of materials, and we can start from self-assessment. Like there is tools for self-assessment to see where is the organization. You know, always. I mean, if you are not starting with nothing. I'm sure that you have something. You know, consent for children. I don't know. So kind of good practice, written or not. So it's good for you to start with self-assessment, then to find where is the risk. There is also tools for risk assessment, and to make this mapping local and national, to see legislation, to see services, contacts, people. This is for the very, very beginning. And the next is just to have idea that this process not so complicated. Let's say in the end, there is like maybe at least 4 things that you have to think about: prevention, intervention, reaction, how to assist to children, to victims, and in the end, how to manage this communication with people outside from organization. This is like.
So there was a question from Andreas. Is it more important to train the team than to make them sign a paper, or to train the kids? So there are 3.
Okay. Well, maybe I can just follow on from what Sasha said, because I can post in the chat. So just a link to keeping children safe. And as Sasha said, they also offer self-assessment tools and a lot of resources to kind of get you on your way. We're a member of theirs, and they offer trainings, a lot of support on child protection. That's all they do every day. So they're really helpful. But the other thing, is also just, I think it's just about starting to have conversations and starting to have like open conversations about what it means, and to not make children or adults feel that they can't even ask a question because they should know. So it is also about creating a space where children and adults, you're listening to both of them about what their needs are, why you're doing certain things, and just starting to create this culture that is kind of trusting, where you can have these conversations, but also transparent, and where you're able to say, this didn't work out. Because as Sasha said, the worst thing you can do is like cover something up. It's a learning opportunity, as well as you have to deal with something, but you also need to point it out so that you can learn. So I think trying to have those conversations very openly with the adults, but I think in response to that question, with the children as well, their priority, children often have a very clear sense of what will make them feel most comfortable, and it's really important from the start to be involving children in deciding safeguarding, making sure that they feel comfortable. So I think it's a little bit of both, but it's just about having those very open and honest conversations with both the adults, your colleagues, but also the young people that you're with, so that they can share what would make them feel comfortable as well.
So you are saying every decision should be made together with the child?
Yes, I think children need to be involved in the process. There are instances when if a child is being abused or harmed in a certain way, that you do have to, they might not want to take it forward. But if a child is being abused, we have a duty of care, and it's important to follow the correct procedures and to explain to the child what it is that you're going to do and why it is that you're doing that, so that they understand. So yes, there are going to be instances where you have to kind of put their care first, but in general, I think it's just really important to involve children in protection and decisions around safeguarding as well.
Okay, so I have got just one question. We don't have so much time left, but how to start to speak to children about child protection when we are thinking that children are supposed to be innocent and live in the childish world and where everything is supposed to be nice and beautiful, and we want to help them, and in the same time, where to start with?
I can start with to answer to Andrea and your question. Andreas is asking, like, what is more important? Train the team, sign paper, train the kids. All these things are part of this prevention. So your safeguarding needs to have this part as prevention. So to prepare how to train, how to inform, how to educate, and for children, it's a matter of participation. So we all work with children, and one of things is to adjust our to adapt our work, language, terms in accordance with children knowledge, experience, age, whatever. So not to be afraid of telling of talking to children of different issues. I mean, you can always make poster if you feel uncomfortable. There is a lot of materials actually how to present specific issue to children, and we really, yes, it's taboo, sexual, I think, education, whatever. But if we feel uncomfortable to talk about this, I mean, it can then we put more children in risk. And it's a matter how to, when you point out, it's how to make this discussion comfortable for us as adults and for children. So really, there is a lot of, I don't know, materials that the different organizations think about it, and maybe it's easier way, like start with these images, I don't know, pictures.
Yes, here Gilbert wrote that it will be possible to settle a poster in each repetition room where would be written something like, if you're not comfortable, tell it just now. Yeah, that's it's a very good idea. Yes.
And actually one exercise we did, because I say, so we have this code of conduct, which is kind of like the top 10 tips that we have on the wall at all events, or now we post it in Zoom. But something the young people kind of said to us is, oh, well, can we help write the code of conduct? And, you know, so what we try and do is also include the young people in creating these kind of posters or whatever. And so have this like general discussion, like, okay, so what are our top 10 things to make this a safe, enjoyable space for children and adults? And that's a good way of starting to have conversations, because it's kind of got a goal that you can then use in your activities. But it also allows you to start to bring up some of these topics, which sometimes maybe it can feel hard to just bring them up. So I think like the idea of a poster is great. And again, depends a bit on age as well, and experience, the background of the children. But yeah, there's a lot of resources out there. Keeping Children Safe have resources on kind of how to have these conversations as well.
I find this very useful and a lot of information. And anyone there, if you've got some comments or questions, we have just 5 minutes before we are starting to end our session. Alice, I remember you telling me that you had musicians in your family, and so musical world is sort of
yes, indeed,
familiar for me. Are there any questions that might, okay, and then there is Marshall, are there any questions concerning the music teaching still that might pop up to your mind about that we could take in consideration? Just shortly, because then there's Marcus here, Marshall here.
No, but this was very interesting. This is Miria from Cyprus. Hi. And thank you for this. Thank you. And I think this is a necessity for anyone working with children nowadays.
It is definitely, yes. Okay, do you want to answer first, or shall I take Marshall here? Okay, Marshall.
Okay, I'm unmuting myself. Thanks very much. I just to say, really useful session. Thank you so much. And I just wondered if, I mean, Systema Europe does have a kind of pages long safeguarding policy. Whether we do all of it, that's a good big question for us. But I wondered if you would be happy if we sent that to you, just for you to look at it and say, that's no good, or actually that's pretty well there. It would be really useful.
I think we sent already.
Okay, well, I mean,
yes.
If it's been sent, it's really useful to understand. You know, so many of our projects, well, our big projects, we have to work with people from many different countries. And in the end, we've actually ended up often using the kind of UK safeguarding policies as a basis because they're actually the strictest. And it's a very interesting issue, the cultural diversity. Anyway, that was all. But thanks, it's been very useful.
Yeah, actually, thanks a lot for saying that. And I think the international thing can be, and it is often the case that the UK Irish safeguarding standards get used. And it's important to mention that is having the conversations, because different contexts have completely different approaches to children's place in the community, safeguarding, protection. And so it's important to have those kind of discussions, like why we're doing this, the reasons behind it, because in an international context, you do have to, kind of try and find some kind of overarching system, but it can sometimes be difficult to find that balance. But yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I sent our child protection policy and a couple of other resources that maybe Elisabetta or Verna you could share.
Yeah, if you want, I can also share here in the chat so that everybody can see.
That's fine.
Okay.
And Sasha, is it possible also to get in hold of you if somebody has got some questions? Is it possible to share your email address or some other?
Yes, please. You're welcome, and I will be happy to share our experience. And this is the process. Also, when you set up this document, you need to follow, monitor, and revise. Now we're in the process of revising our policies. We realize that something we need to improve or modify or simplify, or I don't know. And at the very beginning, we raised some question. We wasn't sure, but now we're sure, yes, it should be done in this way. So please.
Yes.
And in the chat, I think Elisabetta just shared a safeguarding pack. So it's just an example of one we use for a recent event. If you could not share it far and wide, because it does have my phone number in it. But it's just an example of what we send out to speakers before an event that could be useful.
Okay, so Lisa and Sasha, thank you very much. It has been really enriching and eyes-opening, at least to realize how much there is to go.